Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Game on Cloud 9 here, and today I'm here to bring you guys a new Naruto Manga 636 prediction. Alright, now before I get started, as you can see, I have a new poster in my background. And I basically decided to do that because, I don't know, I kind of feel like sometimes when you just look at blank backgrounds, it looks a little boring. And I know you guys have been getting kind of like random backgrounds lately, so I just decided since I had this poster where I picked up in Japan, I might as well go ahead and throw it up now, even though I knew it probably wasn't going to show up too well on the camera because it looks pretty small right now. But at least it adds a little something to the background, makes it look a little better, at least I hope to you guys it does. But besides that, let's just get on to this week's chapter of Naruto. Now, I just want to say, I think that this chapter this week, although there was things I enjoyed about it, which I usually enjoy most Naruto chapters, let's be honest. But in terms of pacing, I don't really think that it was done that well at all. And, I'm going to be the first to tell you, I felt like the cliffhanger, especially in this week's chapter, was definitely misplaced. Now, let's just get started with the recap. Now, the beginning of the chapter focuses on Orochimaru. And of course, Orochimaru, he's, finally arrived to where Tsunade was, which I'm glad that they didn't flip over again or do anything crazy like that, that we actually continued on from where the cliffhanger was the previous chapter. But Tsunade, she's pretty much in her completely drained out of chakra. She's in a messed up state right now. She's still in half at this point, and Katsuyu actually happened to still stay on the battlefield with her, which actually surprised me because I thought Katsuyu was with Sakura, which she still is, but apparently I guess when she splits herself up, she can also still link up with two different people and still be able to perform the same healing jutsu. So she is in the middle of healing Tsunade, and Orochimaru pretty much walks into Katsuyu. Katsuyu's getting ready to attack Orochimaru, and he basically says, "Look, I'm not here to hurt Tsunade. I'm here to help." And, of course he had Karin and Suigetsu with him, so we already knew pretty much what he's about to do. And Katsuyu, she sees Tsunade is pretty much, she's about to be done, so she just lets go and says, "Okay, I'll follow your lead then." And Orochimaru, he actually has Suigetsu and Karin go ahead and tag team and fix Tsunade up. Suigetsu takes his, his water jutsu and is able to help move her body and, keep it, I don't know if he kept it, how he exactly did it, but I guess he's able to move it up and help with, keeping her body together without her guts spilling out. That's my assumption. But anyway, he ended up doing that, and Karin ended up using her healing jutsu, and they eventually ended up finally fixing up Tsunade. It was actually a bit funny when she was actually sucking away at Karin, because you had Karin sitting there talking about how she's pretty much sucking the youth right out of her. So I found that part funny in the chapter. In fact, in general, I thought the comedy in the chapter was actually probably one of the better things, because even though this is a war, and I'm not saying that comedy is necessarily the best thing to have in a war, because the wars are meant to be serious, wars are meant to have, a lot of different, action going on, and, of course, a lot of different dynamics to it. But one of the things that I actually have to say that I missed from Part 1, and you guys know I'm not a Part 1 fanatic. I like Naruto Part 1, but I actually prefer Part 2 over Part 1, which I know is different than probably a lot of you guys out there. But I do feel as though Part 1 did a really good job in terms of lighthearted feel and comedy, which it should, because I felt like in Part 1 it kind of laid out the groundwork for everything and how things were going to be, and Shippuden had the more serious tone things and the more gruesome things going on. It should have a lighthearted feel compared to Part 2. So it was good to see a little bit of comic relief between Suigetsu, and that actually returned a little bit. Especially I was actually a little bit surprised Orochimaru even got involved a little bit. Which sometimes when you see the scenes of Orochimaru and actually kind of acting a little goofy, it's a little weird. But at the same time, I still enjoy it. Now, I would say the other probably main thing to focus on this chapter is the conversation between Tsunade and Orochimaru. Pretty much after Tsunade's fixed up, she actually says to Orochimaru, I can tell you've changed a little bit. She knows that this is Orochimaru has been he's acting a little funny to actually go through the trouble of helping her out. And one thing that Orochimaru actually says, which is probably one of the bigger things in the chapter, is that, with enough time, the more someone lives on, people change. And, Tsunade, she actually goes on to, I think she talks about, I know they talk about Jiraiya. I'm trying to remember what they said exactly. I know Orochimaru, he's the one who went ahead and said that, Tsunade told him that, they may have been able to actually save Jiraiya if he would have changed sooner. And Orochimaru goes on to say, but then Jiraiya may have ended up changing, which actually was a pretty good point, because you never know what that would have actually caused to him having to actually kill one of his own students like Pain. But of course, that wasn't actually the case. Of course he didn't kill Pain, but, I'm glad Jiraiya didn't change. That would have definitely been a pretty sad thing in Naruto. I can't imagine like an evil Jiraiya, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys can't either. He's already a perv. What next is he going to do? Freaking rape somebody or something? But anyway, the conversation between Orochimaru and Tsunade definitely gets you thinking about where Orochimaru's character stands right now, which I think it makes him more of an interesting character to me. I know he's a lot of people's favorite villain out there. He's never been my favorite villain, although I have enjoyed him a lot. He was the first big villain in the Naruto series, so of course he's always going to have that nostalgic feel to me. But then when I look at the depths of his character compared to a lot of other later villains, in my opinion, it's never really been that deep until really now. I feel like he's getting kind of a little bit of more depth to his character in terms of the way he works. Not only that, but then he even talked about something about winds. I can't remember way he put it, but basically what he was saying is that he's trying to ride out Sasuke's wind. He wants to see where it's going instead of being the one who actually causes the wind. So in other words, he wants to see, we all know that he said that he wants to see the path, the way that Sasuke actually goes down. And I actually truly believe that's really what he wants. And I don't necessarily know if that makes him good, because at first I was thinking, oh man, Orochimaru, he's really good. But then I sat back and thought about it, and I was thinking, I think Orochimaru, what he's really doing is he sees Sasuke as just like an experiment. He doesn't want anything to disrupt what's going on with his experiment right now. He doesn't want the Ten Tails to end anything, because if the Ten Tails wins, or the Infinite Tsukuyomi wins, of course he won't be able to see how Sasuke ultimately ends up. If anything else happens to Sasuke, pretty much if he gets taken out by anybody, he won't be able to see how Sasuke ends up. So in other words, he wants to follow whatever Sasuke says, because he wants to see what is ultimately going to be the end game, or what's going to end up being the final, I guess, path that Sasuke ends up actually ultimately choosing. What is the final decision he's actually going to make in terms of what he's been trying to go through all this time in terms of his pathway of hatred. Because all this time, Sasuke's been listening to everybody else, but he's never actually followed his own mind. So I do think Orochimaru actually is intrigued with what Sasuke is actually trying to do right now. And another reason why I think Orochimaru isn't necessarily good right now is because he has no problem destroying the leaf. A lot of you guys say, wait a minute, he just helps Tsunade. But another reason why I know he doesn't have no problem destroying the leaf is because he straight up said to the Hokage himself that, hey, if Sasuke wants to destroy the leaf, I'll have you guys do that. I'll take you right now and have you guys destroy the leaf. So I really think that to really know where Orochimaru's true motives lie, like what Orochimaru's end game is beyond Sasuke, is the conversation that Sasuke and Orochimaru had while they were walking through the forest. We never got the end of that flashback. Or like Sasuke asked Orochimaru what was the true reason he wanted to destroy Konoha, and we never got the end of that. So I think we just have to wait and see what actually was said to be able to actually know ultimately what's going on with Orochimaru's character. So yeah, that's why I'm actually liking Orochimaru a lot more now than probably I did before in the storyline. Not saying I didn't like him, I always liked Orochimaru, but I compared to a lot of other villains, I felt like other villains have more depth to them than him. But now he's getting a lot more right now, which I actually appreciate. Now, the other part of the chapter focused on Sasuke. Sasuke actually, of course, Naruto and Sasuke, they're fighting against the Ten Tails, and the Amaterasu that was left in the Ten Tails, it was burning it up. So I was actually a little bit surprised about that, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised because I think the Amaterasu is supposed to be like the temperature of their sun or something like that. But anyway, the end of the chapter, or not the end of the chapter, close to the end of the chapter, of course, Naruto and Sasuke start bickering because, Sasuke won't put it out because he wants to destroy the tail beast. Naruto gets upset, because he's like, I want to free the tail beast. So right there, you see them having a clash of ideals right there. Sai pretty much confirms the fact Sasuke is not good. Sasuke is still bad. and Sakura knows it. She's in denial, so got Team 7 drama right there. And then towards the end of the chapter, of course, after the whole Sasuke situation, the Kages, they rise up, and they're ready to go to battle. And then you get the Obito thing where he's fighting against Kakashi and they stab each other. Now, the reason why I think the pacing was off in this week's chapter is probably because a majority of the chapter focused on Orochimaru. You have a little piece that had you focusing on Sasuke's moves, where he's going, and all that. And then you had a little piece of Obito being the cliffhanger, stabbing Kakashi. I felt as though that was just too random. I felt like that wasn't necessarily the best cliffhanger in the world. Now, I mean, of course, as a fan, I'm excited. But in terms of, from a reviewing aspect, I don't think that was done well because, it didn't fit in with the chapter. It was out of nowhere. So I don't necessarily think that was done too well. And, the pacing, of course, I feel like could have been a little bit better. Maybe, Kishimoto could have, I'm not going to say cut down the comic relief between Suigetsu and Karin because I think that was good. But, maybe, cut down a little bit on it and probably kept things a little bit more even with the Orochimaru and Tsunade conversation and the Sakura and Sai conversation, of course, with the Naruto and Sasuke stuff. So other than that, no problems with the chapter, but that is a huge flaw though, the pacing. So I have to say, in terms of rating, I have to give this chapter Chunin level because that is a pretty big problem, but it did have me questioning and getting a little bit more into Orochimaru's character. So that's why I think that it at least deserves Chunin level this week. Now, in terms of where I think this is gonna lead to. Well, next week, obviously, we're probably going to get the Obito Kakashi thing. Otherwise, the cliffhanger was completely useless if we don't. So that means next week's chapter will start off on a bad note if we don't at least jump right into that. So I don't know if Kakashi's going to die or not. I don't think he will. Obito, I don't think he's going to die from this either. I'm kind of wondering what's ultimately going to lead them to leave this dimension. I think they're probably about to leave the dimension pretty soon, and Minato's going to get involved. Because, I couldn't see any more discussion really going on too much longer into the dimension that they're residing in. And maybe after this particular scene, we'll finally have the Ten Tails finally start resurrecting. But I do think that Naruto and Sasuke, while the Ten Tails is finally going into its final form, they're probably going to have a lot of bickering, a lot of fighting going on between each other. Of course, they're going to work together, but I don't know how it's going to turn out beyond there. Other than that, again, chapter Chunin level this week. And that's all I really have to say about it. Kage should be on their way. Maybe Naruto will cloak them in the next few chapters. Probably when the Ten Tails in its final form, that's probably when they'll show up and arrive. And that's when everybody's going to have to jump it. And Madara and Hashirama, maybe they'll go off somewhere else and fight. And that will be that. But the Sasuke stuff with Team 7, I think that will definitely be handled after the Ten Tails fight. So hopefully, in terms of good writing, I think Kishimoto should handle the rest of the Naruto and Sasuke stuff after the Ten Tails fight, so it gives us a fresher feel than what we're getting on this battlefield. But anyways, this is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And just to let anybody know,